And now we will introduce our very honorable speakers. And as I mentioned, they are from Sakyadhita, Australia, which is a Buddhist organization dedicated for female Sangha. And am I right? Yes. And Venerable Chokyi is the main speaker. And then we also have Venerable Pekka and Sky Dawson, and then Sandra Henville. And then welcome to all of you. And then I will say a few words about the Sakyadhita organization, just for the benefit of everyone. And Venerable Chokyi is resident teacher at Hayagriva Buddhist Centre. She ordained in 2006 by Kyabje Lama Zopa Rinpoche. She has held several senior posts at FPMT that stand for, I think, Foundation for the Propagation of Mahayana Tradition. Preservation of Mahayana Tradition. Preservation of Mahayana Tradition. And centers in Australia. And international positions within the FPMT. Before coming to Perth, Venerable Chokyi was Spiritual Programs Coordinator at FPMT Centre in Sydney, Sydney's Vajrayana Institute for 10 years. And in 2018 was appointed the resident Western teacher at Chenrezig Institute and FPMT Centre in Queensland. So all the preliminaries are over now. You are waiting for the main event. So I will hand over to Venerable Chokyi and the group. Thank you.
Okay, good evening everyone. It's wonderful to be back here. So thinking of, leading this meditation to start us off. And I thought of leading a meditation appreciating our precious human life. And then I came in also and saw empty glasses and full cups and half full and this and that. And so I want to draw on this analogy from the Buddha. So we'll do that in the meditation, that the Buddha said that, this one's empty, but drop by drop, it becomes full, right? And it's about not underestimating ourselves, that each drop contributes more and more and more. So we'll see how we go with this. Okay. I'll guide you through. Okay, so first of all, sitting, well, you are already sitting. Make sure you're feeling comfortable. Feel a solid support of the ground below, coming up from the earth to ground you through the carpet, through the chair, through the cushion, through the mat, through your legs, through your bottom, whatever part of yourself, horizontal. And so when we sit to meditate, we can give up this idea of sitting up and feel that we're being supported by the ground below, providing a stable, secure, safe, firm foundation. So you can feel your pelvis very much in contact with the ground, or your legs. And then if your spine just naturally stacked up one long line, so the back of your neck's long and your crown towards the ceiling, then all the muscles can be soft, relaxed. Let go. It's Friday evening after all. You can just take a break. So settling in, settling down into your preferred posture for meditating. And as you breathe out, just think of letting go of the busyness of the day, of the week, of the life, whatever. So that as you breathe out, that any tension, tightness, every moment of the breath out, just savouring that release, relax, letting go completely, letting yourself unwind, settle in, settle down. So moment by moment, the breath out. all the way to the very end. You're not needing to jump ahead, really just relishing the letting go, letting things soften. You can check up around your face, shoulders, all your way down to your toes and back up again. And just anywhere you feel any tension, tightness, invite the breath to just release, relax, give you an internal massage, soften, coming to rest. Of course, it's a mindful rest. So we're not sleepitating, we're meditating. And really enjoy the experience of just letting go. So we tend to, build up tension around the face because that's where our senses are concentrated. So inviting the breath, particularly the breath out, to just soften around the brow, around the eyes, around the jaw, around, as if your face is just like melting, the muscles softening, releasing any tension that's built up throughout the day, dissolving into nothingness with each moment of the breath out. Letting your face come to a state of ease, softness. And continue on in your own pace, around the shoulders, around the torso, the arms, the belly, around the hips, all the way down the legs to the tips of the toes. Softening, releasing, relaxing. And then as you breathe in, which just naturally happens, we don't have to take our breath, our body knows how to breathe, done a great job so far, doing a great job keeping us alive. So it just sort of naturally comes in. But as you breathe in, bring in maybe some sense of lightness, even if it helps, white light, or just a sense of invigorating this body. As you breathe in, breathing in a sense of spaciousness around your face, around the forehead, around the eyes, anywhere that feels tight, bringing that sense of space and lightness, as if, waking the body up, energizing the body. Invite that lightness and spaciousness gradually to flow down into other parts of your body with the breath in, and continuing to release, relax with the breath out, finding your own balance. So your body settling more and more in a state of comfort and ease, balance, stillness. Inviting the mind to settle into this space. We've already got this wonderful meditation hall, but withdrawing from our sensory engagement with the world around us gives our mind a break, gives our body a break, and settling into the space of the body in the natural rhythm of the breath, wherever you experience that in your body. settling down more deeply into the space of your body just as it is. Every moment of an experience is a mental moment. Savor each one. And then I'm going to invite you to contemplate your life in terms of what is it that you really appreciate about this life of yours. And we talk about having a precious human rebirth. Tap into that sense of preciousness, of really what you value, what conditions you have to practice Dharma, which may be one of the things you value, I'm sure it is. But all the things that this life gives you, not so much the worldly stuff, but tapping into your inner spiritual being and what really makes your life meaningful, what really you really deeply appreciate. There may be many things, just allow that to flow in, wash in. And any time you noticed a pleasant sensation or a sense of bliss or joy or anything positive, really savour that. What do I really appreciate about this life of mine? It might include having each other here, that we have Dharma friends that we can connect with, that we can talk to in ways maybe we can't talk to others. We can meditate together, we can practice together. So maybe reflecting on what the Dharma has done for you in your life, how it has been of benefit. And then thinking of this saying of the Buddha that there's no insignificant act, that even the smallest, tiniest act, and thinking about virtuous acts or our good qualities, even the tiniest one has huge impact. So it's not like, oh, I can only do this much, or I can't do more, I'm not powerful, I'm not this, that. No, every little thing, every virtuous thought, every positive quality of our mind, every smile, every little deed we do with our body, speech and mind multiplies. This is what the Buddha talked about when he said, you can imagine a vast vessel, and into that vessel you're putting drops of water, tiny driplets of water, one at a time, not all together, one by one. And think that this represents karma, action, our thoughts, our speech, our actions. Maybe some of them are big drops, but probably a lot of them are little teeny tiny ones. So just think, what do my drops, my karmic drops, look like? So one by one, how many of them are virtuous, how many of them are not so much. Even reflecting on today, how your day has been. And we think every moment, 64 moments, 64, we could say, droplets of karma into our vast vessel. So we could see, how's the water looking? Clean, crystal clear, pure. Just check up. Reflecting back on what you value, appreciate about this life. Think about the positive qualities you've cultivated and remember, drop by drop. Because karma magnifies. So out of one tiny drop, huge impact comes. Just reflect how that resonates for you. The huge impacts from your tiny acts of virtue, through your positive states of mind, through your prayers, through your meditation. And really value that, appreciate that, experience great delight in your efforts. How are the drops in your vessel looking? And just like drop by drop, there's a sort of continuity, but all the drops don't come together. Think about how much have I persevered in my continuous drop by drop practice of Dharma, turning my mind towards Dharma. Has it been this sort of continuous, patient, joyful drop by drop of Dharma? We say, may my mind become the Dharma. So how are these droplets of your mind doing? Having an aspiration, as we have as Dharma practitioners, to continue to persevere, no matter how long it takes, no matter what difficulties arise, drop by drop, dropping another drop of virtue, of practice into our vast vessel. This isn't to say what we haven't done. This is to energize our practice. You think the water of life, the water of my life. Imagine that becoming more and more crystal, clean, pure, refreshing, cool, soothing. Through our speech, through our actions, drop by drop, not big, amazing, world-changing things. Drop by drop, mind-changing things. And looking into the future, thinking, what qualities do I want to cultivate more and more? Love, compassion, patience, kindness, whichever it is, wisdom. And just imagine dropping those droplets into your vast vessel of your mind. Cultivating more and more, one droplet, one moment at a time. The positive qualities we value in this is amazing, precious life. Deeply appreciating our Buddha nature, our connection with Dharma, the meaning we make of our life, the important things, people, places, things in our life that have contributed to each drop in my vast vessel. And never giving up, continuing to persevere drop by drop by drop, till it's brimming over, a huge result. This is the magnification of karma. From one little tiny seed or droplet, as huge results come. And maybe we know this from our own experience in life. And allow that sense of preciousness, of deep appreciation to really sink into your heart, sink more deeply, have more meaning. And gathering together all the precious droplets of your virtue, of your practice, of your determination, of your perseverance, and all those positive qualities that you've called to mind. So that also on top of that, rejoicing that we even engage with the Dharma, that we have all the conditions available to us to do that in such a fractured world. How precious, how dear, how precious, dear. And hold that preciousness like a golden droplet at your heart. And continue each moment of something positive to delight, to rejoice, to take great joy in that. It's the easiest way of creating more virtuous droplets in our vast vessel of goodness. So gathering that all in to return time and time and again when things don't go how we'd like, to this experience of our vast vessel, drop by drop. Sujato. O Mune Mune Maha Mune Ye Soha. Ooh, sorry, not used to this one. Okay. Now we all want to drink waters. I hope everyone's got some precious drops.
So Wanju Nilakot, everyone, welcome, welcome. Just checking it's working. So tonight, we're here as Sakyadhita, which, as Ananda explained to us, translates as daughters of the Buddha. And one of the wonderful things Sakyadhita do in WA is bring women together, both lay women and monastic women, to share in the spirit of Kalyanamitta, in friendship. And the other reason we're here tonight is that we're having a little bit of a fundraiser for the Pirivena project. And if you were here a couple of weeks ago, or about a week ago, I was blown away. There's a wonderful project which Ananda will tell you more about. Actually, I'll hand to you and then I will add the little bits I was going to say. Yeah, but Ananda, it just fills my heart with joy that you introduced us tonight, because you are very close to the Nuns monastery. Having a nun in your family, you know the value of ordination and having a space for women to feel free to practice for Dharma, reach their full potential. And can you just tell us a little bit about why the Pirivena project is so special, in particular for the Sri Lankan community?
Thank you, Sandra. Actually, I was hoping that I might give the details later on and just say a brief introduction now, because if anyone is, I saw a few people getting ready to leave. Some people are there for the meditation only. So this fundraiser, there is a box at the table as you enter. And as at Sandra's invitation, I will say the few words right now. Thank you. And then last week during the talk here, we very briefly introduced to this project that the Sutta Central has initiated. Just to say what is Sutta Central is. Sutta Central is a project initiated by Most Venerable Bhante Sujato Mahatero, and he is now residing in Sydney. He was at Bodhinyana Monastery in Serpentine. This is like, Sutta Central is like the virtual monastery. We can practice every day, anytime, all the time. All the sutta is the discourses by the Buddha, and they are arranged in a way that you can't comprehend how methodically, how nicely, how easily they have been structured into various groups. So Sutta Central contains all these discourses. They are in what are called 5 Nikayas. And the 5 Nikayas are Digha Nikaya, that is longer discourses, very long. Majjhima Nikaya, middle length discourses, middle length. Sangyukta Nikaya, which are called linked discourses. Anguttara Nikaya, which are called numerical discourses. Kuddaka Nikaya, which are called minor discourses, which includes things like Dhammapada, which has about 412 or 22 4-line stanzas. They are all nuggets. They are all nuggets. So we can access all that from this website, which is now managed by a trust, including Bhante Sujato and our own Venerable Ajahn Brahmali. So they are in 38 languages now. All these teachings that has been given in Pali are now in 38 world languages. English, Sinhala, Hindi, Arabic, mention, all these languages are there, so we can access. This project, so Sutta Central, now there is a fundraising project specifically dedicated to help, as Sandra said, the fundraising box is on near this door and on my right door. And this project is to help Sangha training institutions in Sri Lanka. They are called Pirivenas. Pirivena is a name that is coming from, for almost from the time that the most venerable great Arahant Mahinda Mahathero brought Buddhism to Sri Lanka about 2,200 years ago. So these are institutions that has been sponsored by the kings at that time, and now they are coming down. At the moment, I understand there are 850 Pirivenas in Sri Lanka, of which a number of them dedicated to train female monastics. So I today spoke to a female monastic from Sri Lanka, and she said, in fact, one is called Sakyadhita Centre in Panadura. So that is in the closer to Colombo. So these places need some support. So Bhante Sujato has come forward to give them the English translations of all those sutta that I mentioned to you, all those 5 Nikaya. I think there are about 20 books of this size. They are Bhante Sujato's translations. And then Vinaya. Vinaya is the monastic discipline or monastic training that they are translated from Pali into English by our own Ajahn Brahmali. There are 8 books. So all these 28 books will be printed and given to all these 850 Sangha training institutions. That is an unbelievable generous deed. Dhammadana and is the highest dana. Buddha said in the Dhammapada, I hope I could remember, Sabbadhanang Dhammadanang Jinati. Sabbarasang Dhammarasang Jinati. There are 2 other sources, and I can't remember the next 2, but anyway, that the last one, that means giving the Dhamma to someone else exceeds every other givings. So we will be helping to give the Dhammadana, which the Buddha said biggest giving. That second one is the taste of Dhamma exceeds every other taste. The last, that is what the meaning of that. So we have this opportunity to help. They will be printed. Each set of these 28 books cost $195. So their target is to raise $195,000. I just checked today on the website, because they show what has been donated during the last 3 days, names, and then the total. At the moment, they are almost at $140,000.
Oh.
It's a great achievement. So they have got, it was started about a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago. So they have reached 140,000. So they are short about $55,000. And very gratefully, last week during the talk, Sandra spontaneously said, we will dedicate the donation next week for Sakyadhita to this Pirivena project. And so I offer to you this opportunity for us to practice the generosity, what the Buddha called chaga. This is one of the this is the first factor of the 4 factors that the Buddha said in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, how we can let go. Chaga, Patanissagga, Mutti, Analayo. That is, out of that, Chaga is the generosity. Buddha said, for anyone, lay people or monastics, first step of letting go, first step, the path to freedom is Chaga, which is generosity. So we have the opportunity today, and doesn't matter, $1, $10, $100, $1,000, anything is welcome. Thank you very much, Sandra. Bye.
Thank you, Ananda. Now, Venerable Chokyi, the reason why I was inspired by this project, and I'm sure that you see this in the Tibetan Mahayana tradition as well, is that many countries have obviously gone through various waves of colonization. And the reason this project's so special is because these early teachings, much like these early poems of the nuns, were written in ancient languages. So they were either written in Pali or Sanskrit, and they were orally transmitted. So I think what's happened in Sri Lanka, like many countries, is that the language has been lost. So when the various peoples came into Sri Lanka, when the British came in, or Portuguese or Dutch, the language gets eroded, and so the teachings are lost. So to be able to provide these teachings in English so that the monastics and lay people can reconnect is just wonderful. And I wonder, you were telling me at the table how you had a similar project or similar situation.
I'm not sure.
Anyway, the spirit of this really is Kalyana Mitta, and I'm going to kick the poems off with a very short 4-line poem from the Therigatha, which is our, in the Theravadan tradition, is the poems of the early nuns. And it's called Mitta. Having gone forth in faith, appreciate your spiritual friends, Mitta. Develop skillful qualities for the sake of finding sanctuary from the yoke. So I'm going to pass to you. You've got your very own microphone.
Yeah.
So would you like to share a bit with us?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
So, first of all, one of the reasons that this is all coinciding, Sakyadhita, and it's celebrating Bhikshuni Day, right? So that's, I think, an acknowledgement of, all the nuns, and, historically, all the way up to now. When I was contemplating what to focus on tonight, so in India there was the 84 great Mahasiddhis, they're called, who were renowned for being they were quite famous for being really amazing practitioners. If anyone's been to Ajanta and Ellora caves, I'm not sure if anyone's been there, but that's where they actually meditated, practiced, and so forth. It's quite a huge complex, and it was all carved out of one giant big rock. So if you haven't been there, you must go, because you spend your whole time going, how could they do this? It's the most beautiful architecture to this day. And the meditation rooms, their rooms, were also carved out of the rock. So they had their room, and then the room was all rock. And then the bed is like a shelf, also a rock slab, right? So this was their abode. Anyway, so it's an amazing place. And I'm mentioning this because out of those 84 great Mahasiddhis, 4 were female. And I wanted to refer to one in particular because it's quite significant for our Tibetan tradition. She is quite significant, but she's also come from, that, of course, that lineage in India. So her name is Bhikshuni Lakshmi. And she lived around the 10th century. And when she was young, she had leprosy. And she developed a practice, which we still do today. Maybe not go into the ins and outs because it's a pretty austere practice. I call it the extreme sport of Tibetan Buddhism. Because it is pretty austere. Anyway, so she developed this based on the Avalokiteshvara, the Buddha of compassion. So she developed this, and what's interesting for me when we talk about poems and then, the early poems and so forth, that my understanding that they're generated by realizations, that, those aha moments, a realization that then generates this, these beautifully crafted works that we still are inspired by today. And so she also is part of those lineage. Sometimes they're called hymns, songs, poems, praises, and so forth. So I wanted to actually chant this praise in English because, yes, picking up on the point of having that in English means that we can connect with that. Having, how many languages was it? 36? 38. 38. That is so profound for the whole world, isn't it? I mean, there's a few other languages in the whole world. There's a few more languages in Australia as well. But nonetheless, it's an amazing, amazing endeavour. So I was talking about leprosy, that's right. She had leprosy, and through engaging in this practice, I mean, she didn't say, I'm going to do a practice to cure leprosy, but that happened. And she got more and more beautiful looking, right? So not only was she free of leprosy, but she became more and more beautiful to the point where the villagers are saying, I think she's up to no good. Because apparently the only way a woman could look beautiful was if she was doing the wrong thing. I mean, she was a nun, right? She must be up to no good, right? I won't say the next bit of the story. But she wasn't. It was just that thing of purity, talking about the Vinaya and the moral conduct, that you see beings who hold that strongly, and they talk about the sweet scent of morality. And we see this with our great lamas. Not see it, we smell it, this beautiful scent. So it's not like, you don't have to use deodorant. So, just saying. Anyway, so I wanted to chant this one. In this practice that we do, it comes like, you do a number of sessions a day over a few days, and a few other things. And it comes after, right at the end of the session, where you've just been, we do long prostrations, right? I don't at the moment because I'm still recovering from my operation, but at the moment I don't. But looking forward to getting back to it. You've probably seen, maybe you've seen, like at Bodh Gaya, people have a prostration board and they go and do these long prostrations. And so right at the end of having done, you've done 3 sessions of it within that, 2 hours, 2.5 hours. And you've just done 21 minutes of prostrating. And then you go, and then this beautiful praise, which is called a Po praise, that's what the common. So she, she composed this whole thing, but it really, I find quite beautiful. So let me chant it. O warrior, compassionate eyed one, who is the treasure of compassion, I request you, please listen to me. Please guide myself, mothers and fathers, in all 6 realms to be freed quickly from the great ocean of samsara. I request that the vast and profound, peerless awakening mind may grow with the tear of your great compassion. Please cleanse all karmas and illusions. Please lead with your hand of compassion me and my greatest 2 fields of bliss. Please Amitabha and Chenrezig in all my lives be virtuous friends. Show well the undeceptive pure path, and quickly place us in Buddha's state. Okay, so that I find very inspirational, maybe because I do it always after having done so many prostrations, doing something beautiful. But I guess what we see in these poems, in these chants and so forth, is that it resonates with our heart. We use words to evoke that, but it's to evoke a heart response. Because if we're talking about gaining realizations, it's heart and mind, isn't it? Like we're not taking our body with us. I hope we realise that. So putting our effort into, sort of the things that really uplift our mind, because more and more I think there's so much negativity in the world, isn't there? And if we get back to the fact that we're actually pure beings, we have Buddha nature, and it doesn't mean we're always good, we're always virtuous, doesn't mean we don't do and say things that are regrettable. Of course we do all those things, but that's not who we truly are. So I find the use of poetry, songs, hymns, chants that really resonate with the heart gives you that connection of this is what I'm really on about. Not the blah, 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 blah out there, but in here. Okay. Next.
Well, you've got quite the book here.
I've got quite the book here.
You've got many, many poems here. Are there some other favourites you'd like to share?
Well, no, I think...
Or maybe, Sky, would you like to share a poem?
Maybe she's got to share more. She's got to share more than one, because I think you're also reading for Bridget as well, aren't you?
No.
You're reading for Bridget.
Yes.
Okay.
Could you? Oh, sure.
That's
working.
I can hear it.
Is that going to be okay?
That's fine. I'll fix it.
I can probably talk without the microphone, actually.
No, no. It's full recording.
No, you need it. for the
Is that easier?
Yeah.
So I would like to share some lovely short poems from an inspirational woman from Japan, and her name is Rengetsu. And I read about her many years ago when I was reading a book by Grace Shirison called Zen Women. And she was talking about a lot of the women who haven't actually had their stories recorded before in the Zen tradition. And this one, Rengetsu, really resonated. As Chokyi was saying, somehow you read the words and they just touch your heart. So Rengetsu was born in 1791 and she died in 1875. And she is still classified as one of the great Japanese poets of the 19th century. So she was a poet, but she was also a wonderful potter. And I've seen a lot of the photos of her pottery. And what she did was she would make these lovely earthenware teapots and cups. And they're very rugged. They're not like you imagine the traditional Japanese perfectly pristine pottery. They're very homely and earthy. And on the teapots and on the cups, she would write her Dharma poetry or something special in words. And so as people were sipping their tea, they were touching into her heart and hearing her words. And she was quite an extraordinary woman. When she was born, or not long afterwards, she was adopted out. And she was widowed twice. Her family was a samurai family, but she had about 5 children. They all died early on in their childhood. And so she went through an enormous amount of trauma. She really started to realize the impermanent nature of everything in her world. And one way that she found that she could make sense of this was that she became a nun. She struggled for many, many years, but she was ordained with this heartfelt effort that she had to really understand what this impermanent nature of life was all about. She moved in to live with her adopted father in his temple as a nun, and the other monks in the temple, they tolerated her to a certain extent, but they weren't really encouraging her to stay there. She was able to stay there for 9 years until her adopted father died, and then they said, you have to leave now. So that was when she became homeless, and she was trying to find a way that she could support herself. And this was when she decided that she would become a poet and a potter. And so it's said that she actually then, this was when she was about 30 or so, she actually then went on to produce 50,000 pieces of art. When I think of that, it's just extraordinary. And they're in museums still all around the world. For her, art was much more than simply a way of making a living, because it offered a way to make sense of her life, and I think to share her wisdom with everyone. And it said that she really had enlightened effort, which really became tangible through her work. The drinking of tea from one of Rengetsu's cups, inscribed with her poetry, one could say, "Drink the tea and feel her heart." So she was just extraordinary how she was able to support herself with these things. So when you think about these lovely rugged pieces of pottery, I'd like you just to imagine someone sitting there, drinking a cup of her tea, sipping it, and on the outside reading a poem from Rengetsu. And here's one of her poems. From dawn to dusk, spending the day gathering clay, surely the Buddha would not think this is a trifling matter. So simple, But just what she's saying is ordinary working life is important. She's suggesting that no one's life is never unimportant. And she's not trying to be esoteric or intellectual. What she's trying to do instead is just reveal a woman who's been really humbled by life and by the blows that she's experienced in life, as well as its beauty. A woman who has exposed her longings and a steady view from which she's really deeply accepted these longings and tried to make sense of them. So here's another expression that she has. It's called ice in the mountain well. And she says, "Yesterday I shattered ice to draw water. No matter this morning, frozen just as solid." And this is the beauty of just the everyday repeating the same small things that we do. As Chokyi was saying, drop by drop, day by day, we repeat these same things. Each day we face ourselves. Each day we do something else. And we find those places where we get stuck, and just gently we change them, drop by drop, moment by moment. And then eventually she is expressing that view through steady meditation practice and practicing Sila. It yields the freedom and the joy of enlightenment. And this was her last one about this. And it's called Autumn Evening. In a mountain field, enthralled, so enthralled, returning all the way home, accompanied by the autumn moon. And this is really looking at the autumn moon, is the moon that rises after the sun has peaked, after the letting go of attainment. And the moon follows us into our own homes, into our own lives. And this is just the simplicity. In a mountain field, enthralled, so enthralled, returning all the way home, accompanied by the autumn moon. So this is the poet Rengetsu.
I just wanted to mention something about the autumn moon, because there are, I was just remembering a book called Splendor of the Autumn Moon, so that in the autumn sky, like generally the sky is pitch black, and then we talk about a full moon in autumn where it's just resplendent in this sky. So it just seemed to be that sense of awakening, realization, that comes from out of that darkness, that you have this brilliant, radiant, splendor.
Yeah. I thought that was really quite. She's lovely. And just the image, I think, of the practicality of wanting to share something, and the way she made things that we can use on a daily basis, with the teapots, with the cups. How beautiful that is, and just to write the special teachings on those.
Wonderful.
Nothing special, but everything special. Yeah. So I had one more poem from the Therigatha, but I thought, shall I read that? This one is just very, very funny, I think. This is by Ambapali, and Ambapali apparently was a courtesan in the time of the Buddha, and she was absolutely beautiful. She was actually found. She was given up at birth, in fact. And she was found in a mangrove grove. There's a whole story, but she was found in the mangrove grove, I think by a gardener. She had a fairly difficult childhood, but she was adopted, she was brought up, she was very, very beautiful. And in her world, a lot of the princes and the wealthy men wanted her, and so this is how she became a courtesan. But there were some beautiful things that came out of her life. She met the Buddha taught in her mangrove grove, and she offered the mangrove grove to him, and her son actually became a monk. However, what I found really fascinating was that as she got older and into her old age, she wrote this beautiful poem about this. And what she did was she actually used her body as a meditation object. And so she looked at the impermanence and the pain and the constant changing of her body until she became an arahant. So as I get into my 70s, I quite appreciate reading the words of some women who are going through these experiences and learning how not to take it so personally, but to quite enjoy and laugh about these things. So this is how she talks about her body aging. And I won't read all of it, but I'll just give you a feel for how this begins and continues. So she says, "Once my hair was black, like the colour of bees, alive, curly. Now it is dry, like bark, fibres of hemp. I am getting old. This is true. I tell you the truth. Covered with flowers, my head was fragrant, like a perfumed box. Now, because of old age, it smells like dog's fur. Thick like a grove, it used to be beautiful, ends parted by comb and pin. Now it's thin, I'm telling the truth. This was a head with fine pins once, decorated with gold, plaited, so beautiful, now bald. My eyebrows were like crescents, exquisitely painted by artists. Now, because of old age, they droop down with wrinkles. Ah, I'm telling the truth. My eyes used to be shiny, brilliant as jewels. Now they don't look so good. My nose was like a delicate peak. Now it's like a long pepper. This scarecrow is telling the truth. My earlobes once, can you believe it, were like well-fashioned bracelets. Now they're heavy with creases. Formerly my teeth were pearly white, like the bud of a plantain. Now they're broken and yellow. Indeed, this is the truth. And she goes on. It's quite lovely. I won't read it all. And then she says at the end, once I had a body of a queen. Now it's lowly, decrepit, an old house, plaster falling off. Sad, but true. Thought that was lovely.
Well, I was going to tell you a bit about the nun Patachara, given that we have the Patachara Hermitage here in Perth. And, you know, it's a bit of a challenge to know which translation one should read. Because over time, things have sort of got eroded and mistranslated and so on and so forth. And even for the sutta purists, even amongst the suttas, it's not consistent. So there's the Upadana account, the Theravada commentaries, and the Anguttara Nikaya. But I'm taking, and this is a wonderful book, it's called Lives of the Early Buddhist Nuns by Alice Collett. So between this and the Sujato translation, I shall read to you. So, here's the story of Patachara. And see, this is where it gets a bit interesting, because it could be the story of Patachara, or it could be the story of another nun, whereby Patachara translates as the one who wanders without cloth, and all will be revealed as to why one is wandering without cloth. So, Patachara was born to a well-to-do family. That is consistent. However, it seems that Patachara fell in love with the servant. And she ran away. So this was a problem. So she ran away and she, well, let's make it romantic. She eloped with the serpent, not the serpent, the servant. The serpent could have been a problem here. She eloped with the servant. And a very unsuitable servant at that, because she was, destined for greater things. So Patachara says to her lover, "After tomorrow you will be kept from seeing me by 100 warders. If you are able, go now and take me with you." And they raced away. And after some time with her husband, Patachara became pregnant. And she wanted to go home to see her parents. However, her husband wasn't willing to take her for whatever reason. And so then when it got to her second child, again she wanted to go home to her family. And she realised, this fool would never take me. That is the translation. And she set out alone. Her husband caught up with her on the road just as the labour pains began, and she gave birth on the road. And he persuaded her to go back home with him. All this was repeated across both children, but with different consequences. So with her second child, the labour pains, so she made a couple of attempts to go home. The labour pains began just at the moment as a storm broke. And then, in the gathering of the storm, all manner of misfortunes began to befall Patachara and the family. So it sort of goes from bad to worse. First, her husband was killed by a snake, see the serpent. His body turning blue as the poison engulfed him. And then she had to cross a flooded river. She lost the first child, then the other. Because she left one child on the bank of the river while she tried to cross the river, but as she was trying to go back, and it could have been an osprey, according to the Therigatha, or a hawk, according to other commentaries, but a hawk took the baby, or the osprey took the baby. And then finally, bereft and distraught at her loss, she made her way to Savatthi, only to discover that her mother, her father and her brother were also deceased. And quite understandably, and this is where the commentaries differ, she went mad with grief. She didn't notice that the cloth that was covering her was falling off, given that she was out of mind with grief. And she uttered the following verse, "Both my sons are dead, my husband is dead on the road, my mother, father and brother are being burnt upon a pyre." So she wandered, naked and crazed. So this begins a section of the Therigatha devoted to Patachara. Because eventually in her wandering, she comes across the Buddha. And the Buddha says to her, "Neither children nor a father nor any relatives are a shelter. Relatives are no protection for one who is affected by death." So according to the commentaries, she then requested ordination, and the Buddha either took her or sent her to the nuns. And according to all four versions, she attains the state of an arahant, although exactly how this occurs is different in each case, depending on which translation you read. She mastered supernormal powers, including the divine eye and the divine ear. She learned all the discipline in presence of the all-seeing one, all the detail. And I'll read you some of her verses. Ploughing the field with ploughs, sowing seeds in the ground, nourishing wives and children, young Brahmins find wealth. Why do I, possessed of virtuous conduct, complying with the teachings of the teacher, not obtain nibbana? I'm not lazy nor proud. I washed my feet in the water and paid attention, observing the water for the feet flowing from the high to the low ground. Then I concentrated my mind like an experienced, well-trained horse. I took a lamp and entered my cell. I inspected the bed and sat on the couch. Then I took a needle and drew out the wick. The liberation of my mind was like the extinguishing of the lamp. And there's a further verse which describes the watching of the water. Just as the water poured out at first by me, beings die in youth. Just as the water that was poured out the second time went further, beings die in middle age. Just as the water poured out the third time went further, still beings die in old age. So, having become enlightened, she then leads 30 nuns. And I'll just pick one of these lines because it is repeated, and interestingly enough, against other nuns' names. Taking a pestle, young men pound grain, supporting partners and children, young men acquire wealth. Do the Buddha's bidding, you won't regret it. Having quickly washed your feet, sit in a discreet place to meditate. Devoted to serenity of the heart, do the Buddha's bidding. So, after hearing her words, the instructions of Patachara, they washed their feet and retired to a discreet place. Devoted to serenity of heart, they did the Buddha's bidding. In the first watch of the night, they recollected their past lives. In the middle watch of the night, they purified their clairvoyance. In the last watch of the night, they shattered the mass of darkness. They rose and paid homage at her feet. We have done your bidding. We shall abide honouring you as the 30 gods honour Indra, undefeated in battle. Masters of the three knowledges, we are free of defilements. And that is how 30 senior nuns declared their enlightenment in the presence of Patachara. So, quite the woman.
Quite the woman. Do you want to do Bridget?
And I've got another poem from our friend Bridget, who couldn't make it tonight. Maybe, Sky, you'd like to read it, just so people get a variety of speakers.
Do you want just to read the poem? Or?
Yeah.
So this is a poem, this is a poem, I think, from the Chinese tradition. And when it's a young girl who entered a nunnery because her family was too poor to raise her. And she eventually acquired a reputation for her wisdom and insight expressed in simple and straightforward language. I urge those of you who aspire to enlightenment, in aspiring to enlightenment, you must be diligent. If your mind is not completely sincere, you will wallow forever in the bitter sea. The great earth is vast and without limit. The sentient beings are too many to count. And yet, how many people are there with the sense to leap out of the bitterness of samsara? Yes.
That's great.
That's from the Daughters of Emptiness, poems of Chinese Buddhist nuns.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful.
Great.
We all want to leap out of samsara. It takes a bit more. Yeah. You have some more? Is it? Or did anyone want to ask some questions? Contribute
Did
to
anyone
the
bring a poem? I put it on the Facebook post if anyone wanted to bring a poem to share, if they
Yeah.
could.
Okay. It's,
Hello.
Yeah.
My question for you tonight is specifically about what you were talking about, little by little, drop by drop.
yeah.
And in particularly applying that when it comes to situations where you're being, say, overstressed by someone being given more responsibilities,
Yeah.
or just essentially in a moment of suffering.
Yeah.
And how to, instead of blame and have an inaccurate mindfulness, instead of that right, I'd say, right thinking or right view,
Yeah.
and how to, I guess, because you've been talking about women and how women have dealt with their circumstances and situations, how to catalyze that experience and actually see it in the right view, right? So as not to, say, hate the other person or, say that this person wants to hurt me, rather than just, say, seeing it correctly, to not create that bad dharma, I guess. That'd be my question for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I think when you're talking about being overstressed and so forth, it's quite interesting, the world today, like, when I read one of our teachers from the 13th century talking about stress, basically. Coming from Tibet, rooftop of the world, in the 13th century, what they would do is pretty much watching yak herders, not shepherds, yakuts. I'm not sure what you call them. And yaks don't move very much. And so, where's the stress? Okay. So if it was valid back then as it is today, then it's the stress is actually coming from ourselves. It's our response to things. So shining a light of awareness before it becomes overstress, too much, and notice, oh, I'm having that niggling sensation. I'm having, so that how soon we can shine that light of awareness. And of course, particularly shamatha meditation does that, calm abiding meditation, where, or cultivating the mindfulness of body, of feelings, of the mind itself, those in particular, of realising, okay, everything's not in balance here. I mean, the whole world's not in balance, so we're not alone. I can't change the whole world. The only thing I can transform is how I respond to the world. And none of us has ideal situations necessarily. And so looking at those situations and going, okay, something has to change here. What is in my capacity to change? And I think you mentioned about having more work piled on you, things like that. That's something that then you need to look at that realistically in terms of, is this, something I need to do something about, which might take courage to speak up and so forth. But initially it's like, well, because one way you can look at it is, well, as long as I don't say something and set a boundary, then I'm going to keep getting more and more and more because, hey, I'm capable, but at what expense? So each one of us, I think, has to look at what quality of life do I want to have? What do I want to prioritise in my life? Like we had in the meditation of love, like, what do I really appreciate? What do I really value? One of my friends who's a teacher, he's a teacher in Sydney at Vajrayana Institute, and he went back to Singapore for a while, a few years, and then one day he just meditated and said, what makes me truly happy? He got on a plane to Sydney. We're grateful that he did. But, you know, he realised that this was his happy place. Not Sydney itself, but the job as teacher there and so forth, as opposed to what he was doing in Singapore. So sometimes we have to make those changes, isn't it? But we have to, like, take it into meditation. What is stressing me in this situation? How do I even know I'm stressed? How do I experience that? And as soon as we start shining a light on that, well, because, you know, I get these crazy thoughts and I clench my jaw, you know, we can feel that. And just like, okay, first of all, we need to unwind. But then think, is there another way I can be with this in the world? You know? And maybe the job is too stressful for anyone, right? And, you know, maybe you can't change the job, but then you say, is this really what I want to be doing? And of course, then we look at, well, I've got this responsibility, that, and I've got to pay bills, I've got family, et cetera, et cetera. There's lots of things to consider. But if we come back to, at the end of the day, what do I really want to take with me at the end of this life? And nobody, I have been told, everybody's on their deathbed going, oh, I should have done more in that job. You know, nobody. They don't have to have any belief in anything, but they know that's not it. So I guess, first of all, is like looking at stress itself and using whatever tools you have, you know, meditating before you go to work, when you come home from work, when you're at work. Like when I was working at a university, I used to go into the first of all, before I was on the computer, I was lecturing and all of that. And so before I did any of that, I sat down, I meditated and so forth. And then, I mean, I had a room to myself, so I could meditate there. But I used to, for some reason, go to the toilet. And we were in a basement, and so the toilets were, hardly anyone used them. So I'd sort of go there and go, okay, this is my little meditation cell. I'll just sit here and meditate. Nobody's going to interrupt me. Finding those moments throughout the day, those breathing moments, those meditating moments, you know, before it builds up. Just go for a walk.
Thank you. That's a really practical tip and tool for that. And may I ask a final question?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. It's just around negative people and people who have that bad energy. And instead of hating or being and having that negative reaction towards those people, because I understand that there's the meditation before and whatnot, but how can we have those good drops towards them? And what can we give those people, even if they are affecting us in negative ways? If I was to ask that, just in general, because there are just bad people out there who, in the news media and all that stuff, what do you give so you don't have, as you say, that personal response that is negative, that affects your life? If I might ask that.
Or any one of us can answer that, maybe?
You can answer.
Oh, I can answer.
I think if I want to add something.
Okay, yeah, you can add it. So, okay, so there's a lot of negative energy in the world, full stop, right? And so places like this are a lovely haven in amongst all that. Truly, really safe place, really positive energy and so forth. But it doesn't mean that we're unaffected, and that's what you're saying. Because, you know, until we have the power to not be affected by other people's negativity, we need protection, right? And so one of the things in relation to, like you mentioned, people in the news and evil people in the world and so forth, is that it's very difficult to remember, but that fact that everyone has Buddha nature, and how they're acting out, like this phrase that I heard a very long time ago I find really helpful: hurt people, hurt people. So people have, people whose mind is peaceful, people have those positive qualities, and so, or we all have the positive qualities, but who operate from that, don't go around hurting people. So, as the Dalai Lama said to us, peace in the world starts with peace in our own mind. And that if all kids learn to meditate at an early age, within one generation we'd have world peace. It sounds incredible, but doable. But it takes a lot of will in the world to make that happen, because this is how we cultivate a peaceful mind and overcome our own negativities. We've got to do a few other meditations as well. But, starting with that, getting our mind calm and stable. What I often come back to karma, and that enables me to have compassion for those people when I think they have no idea what negative karma they're creating for themselves. They have no clue. As the Buddha said, we have no clue about reality, and that they're doing great harm. And, the repercussions or the magnification, the impact that they're going to experience in future lifetimes. So on that basis, I can have compassion. Right? I've got to think it through and have compassion on the basis that they're hurting, right? And yes, they're creating harm for others. Because I also think, particularly when it comes to world leaders who, they're not, in some ways they're creating havoc for the whole world, we could say. And so that influence, that impact that they have, which alternately could be a force for good, but it's sadly, in many cases, not. But that they will reap the negative karma of that, and it's not like we're saying, oh yeah, just wait till you get the negative karma of that. It's not that at all. But seeing they have no idea. I hope that peace arises in their minds, the ones who are doing it, because then it's a win-win. So it's just like giving yourself a talk like that and thinking, yeah, this is harmful. If it's ever a situation where we can intervene skillfully, then by all means, but not at the world stage level, we can't do that. But if there are things like, having the courage to stand up against people being rude and so forth. I remember one time, mind you, it was at a Dharma centre, and these two people, they were, like I was just walking up the hill, which Dharma centre it was, walking up the hill. And, anyway, there was one in the car and one there, and they were fighting big time. And it just you just sort of take a step back and observe from a distance and see, this is only escalating worse and worse and worse. Okay, I thought maybe I could intervene skillfully. So I go over and I just say, this is what I'm observing is happening. You're not resolving anything. It's just getting worse and worse, and you keep attacking each other. Stop. Take a break. Whatever. Well, I got more abuse from one, but the other one I had to talk to. And the one who abused me, it was a few months later, but came up to me and said, I'm so sorry. I thought, go figure. So it gave him something to think about, right? So sometimes we don't even think we're having an impact, but we are. If there are skillful words, actions that we can use. Of course, then the big thing is somebody who you really dislike is give them a gift. Okay. Yeah. See how that changes the dynamics.
All right. Thank you very much. That was a very skillful answer.
Okay.
Time to finish.
I think we're coming up to time. I was going to quote Kenny Rogers, know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em, in that situation.
What was it?
Know when to hold them, know when to fold them.
Fold them.
Fold them. You step up or you step away.
Oh.
Not very Buddhist.
No, we won't finish with that.
No. He passed me the poems. I reckon there's a fierce one in there.
A fierce one. Yeah, we need to be courageous. Well,
Yes.
yeah. Because it actually, the more we step up, the easier it gets. It's the first time that's the hardest, you know, what if and blah, 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 blah. Even, you know, but skillful. We don't want to put ourselves in danger, just like when we do first aid training, you check, you know, am I going to place myself in danger? Because that would be silly.
Okay. This is from the early nun Samana. Having seen the elements of suffering, don't get reborn again. When you've discarded desire for rebirth, you will live at peace. Or, Uttara, I was restrained in body, speech and mind, having plucked out craving, root and all, I'm cool and quenched. Cool and quenched.
Cool and quenched. Yes. I think that's a good place to stop. Thank you very much.
So thank you everyone for coming this evening, and let's pay our respects and we'll... Oh, hang on. Yep.
And thank you very much for coming, everyone, and thank you very much, Venerable Chokyi. Thank you very much, Venerable Pekka, and thanks for Sky, and thank you, Sandra. And from the Buddhist Society, and we have a very small gift for show appreciation, and then I think before that maybe we should give 3 sadhus to the group, Sakyadhita group, headed by Venerable Chokyi, for coming here and enlightening us with the Buddha's Dhamma. So let's give 3 sadhus to the 4 visitors. Sadhu, 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 sadhu. And before...
Lexode.
So,
It's the same in Tibetan, right? It's sadhu in Tibetan, lexode.
so don't forget before you go, if you have a few coins, notes into the box, and this is for this.
Thank you very much.
This is for the group, Sandra. And
Thank
group.
you.
Thank you. And that is the end of the proceedings, so quietly we can depart.
Do you want to finish with a blessing and we'll finish with the...
I'll do a Tibetan one. Gawadi no doda lama sangye rudyone drowa chikyam mahalupam ne sala gopashu. And
Ananda's going to help me. Teamwork makes the dream work. Arahant Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddham Bhagavantam Abhivademi Swakato Bhagavato Dhammo Dhammam Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Sangam Namami. Thank you.
okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you, everybody. It was a lovely evening. I hope you enjoyed the poems.